Finally, Peter Obi and Atiku don't file evidence against the tribunal judgments where they take favor Tinubu. See, Mona, listen, this matter, it go hot well. We think say the death of Mohbad don't clear all these things come up for us, say Nigeria don't move on. But na lie, Nigeria don't move on. This video will tell una where Nigeria dey at the meantime. Well, make we move away from this story small. We want to see am say the investors wey Tinubu go meet for New York, that's the main purpose, apart from saying one go speak for among the UN, whatever you want go talk for you New York. The main reason why be say they travel now to attract investors. But we come dey hear right now say investors no want come Nigeria because in case anything happen to them, the judiciary system is weak. They can only favor the party that has more power and more money. So everybody is scared now that Nigeria is not safe because of the reports where they get during the election. We be say even the tribunal itself talk say all those things na jargons. However, the death of Mohbad shows say Nigerians not like injustice. Nigerians stand on the path of truth. Nigerians, we are together. See, the millions of people that came out to protest for the death of Mohbad. You tell say this one na Hausa, this one na Yoruba, this one na from Ekwale. No, everybody gets one goal: justice for Mohbad. Now, this was the same thing that happened during the tribunal, all eyes on the judiciary. But what did the judiciary do? They failed us. But Nigeria not still relents. If something happen, Nigerians they take them up. Bad as you bad. Nigerians say I hate Luna. In fact, not too much. The only people who they kill us for our country now, our leaders. So see, Bono, Nigerians get good mind. Nigerians they not go let their own say they all they live on just they fall, they die, they throw away. No, Nigerians more protest. They not go look and say we are not of the same faith, we are not of the same language or tongue, we are not of the same. Now politicians then they build bad thoughts into people's mind, meaning they fight themselves. But of a read through, Nigeria has a very good mind. When things surprise me past for this Mohbad on, they fit get justice for am because one, the father is not a rich man, he's not a politician. So even if the father get hand for a pikin death one way or the other, say you know I'm drag Mali leg comments because the guy not get money, the case feel legal for a very long time till they find the truth because he's a poor man. Okay, looking at the Mohbad from the other hand now, it was being used, manipulated, it was silenced. So apart from government, now you want fight for this case or individual NGOs, now if you fight for this case to see justice. Okay, now let's turn the table around. What about if now one big man now they involved in this case? Una say by now this whole thing never they die down. So it's like you can the rich can only buy their way through, but the poor no. So if wanna look what Mohbad father do and the one way INEC do, my people, wanna compare and contrast, wanna see what they play for Nigeria. But INEC chairman waka free. As Mohbad father, they collect money after a pikin don't die, we go bury him. The same thing INEC chairman do to Nigeria. INEC chairman collect bribe. In fact, all the things we talk say want do, no one will do. In fact, when they come and when they talk with TBC, they pay person for a year. They can't see by the judiciary join. Nobody fi fight them. They waka free. Now between Mohbad father, we just quick go bury pikin, and INEC chairman and the co-plotters, who not to say a wicked pass, but yet Nigerians not get justice. They legal the whole thing. They go, they drag and here and there because people will get money involved for this case. My people, this life get as it be, balance. Our people they talk and say if rich man they boast with him money and fame, poor man will they boast with death. My people, this on a Bod TV board. Will not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Una do well.
Well, thanks again. Let's start with your rather persistent tweets about the 2023 presidential election. Why are you still tweeting about that when many Nigerians, and indeed many in the international community and the world stage, have accepted Bola Ahmed Tinubu as Nigeria's president? Is there much unfinished business still?
Well, I think the process will continue to the Supreme Court, like you just said yourself. And I think it's a good thing that both Atiku and Obi are going to the Supreme Court. My biggest interest there is not whether they get whatever they're looking for, as much as to ensure that damage is not done to the whole system. The whole purpose of this Electoral Act, which was a much improved Electoral Act, I actually said it on TV, that it was one of the legacies of President Buhari, was that it was supposed to deliver an improved environment for us to carry out elections transparently, lower the burden of proof for those filing petitions, and also even to make the information available to the whole world via INEC's IREV. So any things that threaten all those gains, I think they should be elevated all the way to Supreme Court, and let Supreme Court tell us which elements of the Electoral Act are still valid, which ones are not, or indeed has the whole act been repealed.
Well, I mean, that process that you talk about has obviously started. It actually began at the Presidential Elections Petitions Court, where it has concluded. Is there anything that was particularly significant or that you saw that stood out for you from the PDP's Atiku Abubakar or the Labour Party's Peter Obi's submissions at that Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal?
Yes, I'm talking now as an economist. We spent, I think, over 350 billion to create new instruments like INEC, IREV, which were supposed to put things beyond doubt. The Osun election, everything was done almost correctly, governorship election. It was the last election before the presidential. By 6 p.m., many of us had been on INEC's IREV. We knew the results. For the presidency, there was talk about a glitch. But guess what? 6 months late, more than 6 months later, as of today, they have still not uploaded all the polling unit results. You turn to some pages, you see things like access denied. You turn to the next page, you see a completely blurred image. So if we could get it right for Osun, what stopped INEC from getting it right for where it matters most, the presidency?
Yes, I expect...
So PDP came out with some claims. PDP came out with some claims that, quite frankly, shows that the whole system was broken down. According to INEC, PDP won 12 states. PDP put out a statement, or at least in their submission, claiming that they actually came first in 21 states. So they listed an extra 9 states. How is that possible in an environment where everything is meant to be available for us all to examine? I can give you a clue. If so many results were altered, then, and some of us pointed out before that the pattern of the alterations was deducting votes from Labour and adding to APC. That's from INEC's IREV. I didn't create the IREV, but you could see there. So obviously what PDP is talking about is that by the time they returned some of those votes to the correct place, they think that APC gained too much, Labour Party lost too much, and they, PDP, actually finished up in a particular position. Should we be having these kinds of arguments in 2023 about the national election after spending over 300 billion naira? And something is missing because INEC still will not upload all the information till today.
Well, I suppose that's a legitimate question, but I mean, the fact is that that election has taken place. People have gone to the Presidential Elections Tribunal and have now gone to the Supreme Court. But on that tribunal level, what's your overall take on its judgment? What's your assessment of how it handled the case?
See, I'm particularly worried about pronouncements they made, which appear to have taken us back to square one. I said earlier that the Electoral Act was supposed to improve and get us nearer free and fair elections. If all the major gains from the Electoral Act the judges have made pronouncements almost reversing or wiping them out, then it's important that Supreme Court decides beyond Atiku and Obi. We have elections coming, governorship in Imo. We have elections coming in Edo. We have elections coming in Bayelsa. It's important we know whether INEC is going to conduct these elections the way they handled the elections for Osun, or are they going to repeat this nonsense they did in the presidential election, claiming a glitch and hiding results and posting blurred images and all sorts. It also creates a problem for a winner in terms of legitimacy. What are we hiding 6 months after an election? So I'm concerned more about what it portends for the future and for future elections. Because if we wipe away all the gains, then we can as well ask INEC and DSS and whoever to just tell us who they want to announce as a winner. Because if you make the burden of proof so high for those who have been wounded by the system, then people will resort to self-help. If you are completely silent and ignore voter suppression, then everybody in Edo and Bayelsa and Imo will be thinking about voter suppression.
Right. Well, right. You mentioned the Supreme Court, Mr. Peterside. Let's turn to the Supreme Court in a circumscribed way, of course. If the case is going to be opening there soon, we have to be circumspect. What are the main issues that you see or you believe should be before the court in deciding this seminal case?
No, I think I'm concerned about, like I said earlier, things that concern our future. Can INEC be held accountable at all? If yes, how? Are we placing too high a burden of proof on every petitioner? Who is an acceptable expert witness? Does party membership disqualify a witness? We're talking about, is INEC empowered to make rules, issue press releases, tell us this is what they're going to do, and do the exact opposite? If that is the case, then for the next election, is there any point in INEC bringing out a press release? Have election petitions become impossible, really, because of this 21-day witness oath rule that is being bandied around? Does proving election infractions require the impossible task of calling witnesses from each polling unit in a presidential election? I could go on and on. Can subpoena witnesses refuse to obey court orders and go scot-free? Why would INEC and umpire refuse to bring out certified true copies, certified true copies as demanded? What are they hiding exactly? Should they go scot-free?
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you there. I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Peterside, but I mean that's quite a laundry list of points you've raised there. I mean, do you trust the Supreme Court? I'm wondering how feasible the PDP and the Labour Party's appeal case to the Supreme Court will be, and how optimistic you are that the points you raised will gain new wind at the Supreme Court.
I am trusting that the Supreme Court understands that they should not force every Nigerian to resort to self-help in future elections. Therefore, they must address some issues. Is there now a permanent ban on use of technology in future Nigerian elections? They should tell us. Is it true that there are no more candidate qualification issues post-nomination by a political party? Do we not require complete clarity on what is a pre-election matter versus a post-election matter? Do we have that clarity now? Will Supreme Court help us out there? Is the 2022 Electoral Act now effectively repealed? Should we disregard all future INEC press statements if their press statements have no meaning? What does that do to INEC? Then, I mentioned earlier certified true copies. If an umpire cannot bring out a certified true copy of his own work, what is he there for? where it is proven that INEC staff falsified a polling unit results before uploading same on IREV, should there be any consequence for this criminal action? Above all, have we truly set the stage for free and fair elections in the forthcoming governorship elections? Or is everybody going to go and look for thugs to suppress voters? And then will INEC in Bayelsa, Imo, and Edo hold back the results? They won't upload them, and they spend the whole night changing them. If that is the case, they can as well just tell us who is the winner now.
Yes, well, just looking at the
Supreme Court.
Right, just looking at the points you raised, quite numerous. Overall, would you say that depending on how thorough the Supreme Court justices are and how impartial, fair and just they are, that the PDP and the Labour Party may still have enough stones in their pouch to slay Goliath? Not forgetting, of course, that David only needed one stone to do that, because certainly on the tribunal level, it doesn't seem like they have a leg to stand on.
Well, I don't want to go into trying to second guess the Supreme Court judges, but all I'm trying to point out is that I hope they will look at the big picture. I'm concerned equally about the future and what this portends for us. What we do, what Supreme Court pronounces on some of these points I've raised, helps to define us as a people. The implications go beyond elections. If people get the impression that Nigeria is not a country where you can do business and rely on judges to clearly interpret every single statute, then they will vote with their feet. So there are broader issues. I'm looking at the big picture. We don't want Supreme Court judges to be relying on all sorts of minor technicalities to dodge the big issues. Everybody is waiting for those big issues, and Supreme Court should boldly pronounce on them, so we know how to handle ourselves in future.
Well, you talked there about the potential for investment. Let me get you to wear your sort of business hat. You are, of course, a prominent investment banker and founder of a major bank, Stanbic IBTC. Do you think the government of President Tinubu is going about attracting international investors the right way? Do you think they'll succeed in that quest, given the things that you've talked about?
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm happy you asked the question, because it's a complex whole. Investors come to a place where they're confident. It's not just about the potential of getting a return. Who wants to invest in a place if you believe there's no law and order? Who wants to invest in a place if you believe that some judges can just wipe you out with the wrong interpretation of your case? So this is a complex whole. And I think that the president himself, Tinubu, should be as concerned as I am to tell INEC, for goodness sake, can you post all these results you promised? Your glitch is over. Why do you want to win an election and you'll be hiding the detailed results up till now? If I passed an exam, I would gladly have them broadcast the results, paste it for the whole world to see, polling unit by polling unit. So the point I'm making is that you cannot just tell the whole world that, oh, come to Nigeria, come and make investments. Initially, they'll wait and see. And the range of you are to respect the rule of law. How good is your judiciary? Those things matter.
Yes, well, I mean, let me turn to one prominent person by way of a return to the issue of the elections. One prominent person who's seen by many as a moral authority. in Nigeria and beyond. That's the Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka, who seems to have come out in support of President Tinubu, insisting that the Labour Party leadership is trying to insist that Peter Obi won the election and are lying and are being deceitful in that process. I mean, what's your take on that?
Okay, first I think let me make it very clear. I have tremendous respect for Wole Soyinka. I was a young graduate in year one when I read the first book. I think that it was the first of his books that I read. The man died. So I'm never going to stay in this studio and disrespect Wole Soyinka. But I will make a serious comment because this has wide implications. First of all, let's make a distinction between Labour Party and the obedient movement. I've said before that for every one Labour Party member, there are probably anything from 9 to 99 obedients. Wole Soyinka most times is talking about Labour Party sometimes, talking about obedience sometimes. The two are not the same. Perhaps almost everybody in Labour Party is obedient, but there are many people who are obedient who are not in Labour Party. And I think the aspect of his commentary that worries me a little is the one that does not seem to recognize that sometimes he's talking about victims. I'm talking about young people. And I know Wole Soyinka well. I read everything about him because he's one of my heroes. I just want to ask a question. You give me the answer, Charles. When Wole Soyinka was 25, from what you know of him, if he came out to vote in an election and thugs held him back and said, you cannot vote because you are Yoruba, we're going to allow only Igbos and Hausas to vote, how would he have reacted? So let's be very careful. So what the people is addressing are people who were victims to voter suppression, the people who watched policemen looking when thugs assaulted them. They were barred from voting. So I'm just saying that let's recognize the fact that some of them have behaved even better than he might have done at that age. So I don't want to take sides in faulting young people or trying to criticize Wole Soyinka, who is my idol. I'm just saying that, look, sometimes let us understand that when you're addressing a group, you have to be very careful because there are different components of that group, including people who are traumatized, people who were injured, indeed some who were killed. So let's be careful. It's like when people discuss Nigerians, sometimes it's better to narrow down and say, who are you addressing? I suspect he's addressing the very vocal elements, some obedience who are particularly vociferous on social media. They could be a tiny subset. So we're looking for healing. We're not trying to divide the nation more.
Right. Well, we've got about a minute and a half left for this chat, sadly. I'm very curious to know, Mr. Peterside, what keeps you going through all this? Because for many others, I mean, the thrill of the chase has been steadily wearing off, and boredom with the protest against the official result of the presidential election is setting in.
No, what keeps me going is the quest for good governance. My prayer has been for good governance for my country, And if we attain good governance, I will retire. And I hope that President Tinubu would build on what Buhari did in the area of electoral reform. Because we were on the same side before on things like June 12th. We were fighting for justice. Justice for me is the same everywhere. What I want is good treatment, equal treatment for people in a similar situation. We want to make sure that people's rights are not oppressed. These are important things. They're bigger issues. and Nigeria must make some positive strides there. And if we do, I'll stop talking.
I think he knew because he always talked about it in his music, and he would always talk about how he's the light, and where there is light, there cannot be any form of darkness whatsoever. Right. So definitely, he knew how special he was.
Let's talk about these rallies.
Absolutely. Now, this, first of all, I like to point out that they're peace rallies. I'm going to put them that way. That's how they're being tagged. They're saying they're not trying to disrupt the peace. This is not a protest. No one is protesting anything. They're only just coming out in their numbers to show their love and their solidarity for Mohbad, and also to emphasize the need for justice. Now, speaking about justice, it is important to define what justice is.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much going around social media, so much sensationalization around this conversation. Justice falls within the questions, what happened to Mohbad? How did he die? And then why was this boy bullied by Naira Marley and his team? Those are the two separate issues. No one is, I mean, there are speculations on social media linking both situations to each other, but I would say to deal with each issue in its individuality and let these investigations now tell us if there's any correlation between Naira Marley, Sam Larry, bullying Mohbad, beating him up, getting show promoters to not get involved with him. The NDLEA video, in fact, I thought that was just, you know, the spokesperson capitalizing on the ignorance of a lot of Nigerians. Because the reality is, I'm going to say that because he's not responding to what he's being asked. He's responding to whether they gave, so what they're saying is, oh, NDLEA allegedly gave Mohbad something that poisoned him. But that's not what people are saying. So that's why I said he's capitalizing on the ignorance. What people are asking is, first of all, that video is not a recent video. Was Mohbad in your custody, yes or no? Did you administer any drink to him? If not now, at any point in time, yes or no? If you're saying no, then how do you justify what Mohbad is saying right now? How do you justify the fact that some of your men have been seen in videos not only beating up this man, but attempting to arrest him, and he's literally fighting for his life? How do you want to justify that? So no one is saying that this is, oh, you people gave Mohbad something and then he passed that. No, that's you capitalizing on ignorance.
Well, thankfully, the Lagos state government is wading in and saying, look, justice has to be done.
Yes.
It must be investigated thoroughly.
Thoroughly.
No sensationalism, no media, whatever it is. Let's get to the root of this so that at the end of the day, this young man would not have died, you know, for nothing.
Absolutely, they are. However, there's also another angle to look at it from. Great, let's get to the root of it. But what is the root? Because right now, I've never seen...
That's why you need the investigation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've never seen this many people this dedicated and this involved. We're all waiting to see what the result of this investigation is. But like I said earlier, I'm really hoping that we understand what we're looking for. Are we looking into what happened to Mohbad? Because speaking of the investigation, they talked about exhuming Mohbad's body. They talked about an autopsy. They talked about, you know, the hospital records, the injection that was, you know, administered to him. All those details are going to be released. But that is on the side of what happened to Mohbad. But then we're also talking about the fact that there are some people that have been bullying this boy.
Yeah.
They have been bullying Mohbad for years, not just months. Are we also investigating those issues as well? Because it's not just one issue here.
Yeah, perhaps getting to know to the root of what happened to him, then will point us in the direction of which of those who have been bullying him we could then approach or go after. Don't you think?
What if it has nothing to do with them? Because I've been in touch with Mohbad's team. And as much as they don't want to put out the information because they feel like it's something that they would want the investigation to reveal, what if it turns out that whatever happened to Mohbad was an isolated incident that maybe several issues that he had dealt with in his past led to?
And that would
But
be
then
the work
again,
of the
on
DSS.
the other hand, there is the issue of the things that have been going on in the music industry, where an artist can be blacklisted because he's not willing to play ball.
And that is another issue
that is a major issue that needs to be looked into, seriously.
Yes, that's another issue, because the reality is, while we find out what happened to Mohbad, that's Mohbad dying. Why did they bury him so quickly? That's one issue. But the fact that certain people feel they have as much power to do what they did to this young man.
Yeah.
Granted, everyone says, well, we were not listening. We take our fault. We weren't paying attention to what this boy was saying in his music. We weren't paying attention to posts he put out all the way back in 2022. But now we're listening, because it's not just Mohbad. There's so many Mohbads out there within the music industry that are suffering the exact same thing.
That's not the
so
first
this
time,
idea of bullying people with power, and by power, I mean, these people don't work alone. We've seen pictures of Naira Marley. We've seen pictures of Sam Larry with some of these people that are even doing these investigations. So what are we talking about? You have a backing that is protecting the institution that you use to demoralize these young artists, because first of all, they don't even know what they want. They're not educated enough to speak up for themselves. Look at DJ Splash, the video
and
where
those who should be protecting them
are not doing anything. So that's a separate investigation, and I hope that the fight, as we find out what happened to Mohbad, it doesn't trump the fact that we need to also hold these people accountable for what they did. Because, I mean, the evidence is out there. I don't know what else you're looking for.
A wife of former President Goodluck Jonathan, Patience Jonathan, has accepted to champion the development drive for curling sports in Nigeria. The Nigerian Curling Federation, which was formed in 2017, only last year became the first African team to qualify for the 2024 Youth Olympic Games in South Korea. Some of the members of the team present at the event say they are optimistic of Team Nigeria's chances at the Games. Team Nigeria comprises of 6 players and 2 extras and will be participating in doubles and mixed doubles category at the Games.
It is with a great sense of honor that I stand before you today to accept the role of Grand Patron of the Nigerian Curling Federation. This recognition bestowed by the World Curling Federation is a demonstration of the collective efforts of all individuals that have worked tirelessly to advance the development of sports in Nigeria.
This is Bod TV Bod. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.